Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us at the MarketSite studio, we have Fausto Pugliese, president of Cyber Trading University, to discuss how to use Nasdaq BookViewer to trade news and big earnings. And Fausto, certainly there's a lot going on this week, despite it being slow August trade. But let's start with CVS here, right? I mean, clearly not only CVS, but the retail sector in general is dealing with fraud.
See, there's been a lot of fraud going on, Jill, and there's been just so many news going on over the summer. And what makes for things exciting is that as a trader, unfortunately, catastrophes do make opportunities. I say it all the time on your show, and CVS was one of them. One was, I mean, there was news that came out on Dick's. You know, obviously they had bad earnings because of it, and they're blaming it on the theft. CVS was one of them. Now the thing is, a lot of people own these stocks, and they want to know, my God, do I sell it? Do I get out? And what's great about the BookViewer, it kind of tells you where the orders are. And you could see on the first chart that we have it trending down. It's taking a very big hit. Now, with the BookViewer, the great thing about it is that, like, okay, listen, the stock is, can it go to zero? Listen, chances are obviously not. There's always going to be something called program trading where there are these orders everywhere. And you'll see that there are buyers hovering right here on the BookViewer, right around, you know, what's the price? Around $64 at 75 cents. What's key about the BookViewer, what you notice, is that there are orders at every single price level. But when you look at that 64.75, you got 35 orders around the entire world that make up 108,000 shares. And now, when you look at the next slide, what happens as the stock's trending down and you're worrying about how to have a game plan, because the BookViewer gives you that, let's call it future of what's happening. You have support levels there, and there you have the stock go from 64.80 right to 66.80.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that reversal right in front of you. Let's move along to U.S. Steel. Pretty interesting. I mean, you know, a big old American company, and they have a couple of buyers out there potentially.
They have buyers out there, and news came out, and as news comes out, the thing is buy on rumors, sell on news. So there's always people looking to take profits. You know, we don't know. I mean, rumors are rumors, but fact is fact. And fact is that until that news comes out, the stock, you got to have a game plan. You need to know where to get out. So getting back to the Nasdaq BookViewer, we're looking at the resistance levels. We're looking at the offers. We see their offers, 100 shares, 500 shares. When we get down to up to a high of 31.90, you'll see that there are over 250,000 shares looking to be sold right at that price, and there are 22 orders. So the big thing is when we call these big orders iceberg orders, it's all about to know where to get out, because listen, rumors are rumor, and it can come back down, and it happens all the time, Jill.
Yeah, and we could say that, you know, once it hits that 31.90, the seller just begins to drop.
And not in once. It hit it twice. It hit 3 times. You had 3 opportunities to get out of it, and sure enough, if you didn't get out at that price, it came right back down to 30.80, and you know what? That's how you convert a winner into a loser. Yeah.
Now, let's move along to Hawaiian Electric here. This is an interesting stock because it's not something that we typically speak about, but with the fires that we saw in Hawaii, to your point earlier, sometimes traders do, you know, whether it's a catastrophic situation or not, there are trades that need to be made. I mean, we saw it during 9/11 with the airlines. This is what traders do. So let's take a look at Hawaiian Electric and figure out how low can it go.
Well, listen, it's if you look at news came out, they hit a 13-year low, and it literally happened within a couple of days. Now, obviously, people are blaming, oh, it was this, it was that, you know, whatever it could be. As a trader, you can't take things personal, because if you do own the stock, what's going to end up happening, you're going to get hurt, and you don't want to be part of it. Even the S&P downgraded as a junk stock, and you could see a stock how, you know, I mean, literally 13-year low in a couple of days is pretty dangerous. And like you said, you probably never think about trading a stock like this stock, but that's why we're always interested. We saw what happened with 9/11. We saw what happened with Hurricane Sandy. You know, we saw what happened with the Hawaii fires, and here's an example. So, do you short it? You know, absolutely. And you had so many days to do it. So that's how day trades become in swing trades. So what's nice about the Nasdaq BookViewer, you can use it as a swing trade. Now, the key is, where is it going to stop? Okay. Now, when you look at the BookViewer and you start working your way down, you'll start noticing, okay, now program trading's kicking in. You got about 17 orders at about 180,000 shares. It's going to be bought about $9. So what happened when it got close to that 9? Stock bounced, goes from 9 up to 12, and it did it literally in a very short period of time. So as a day trader, what we look at is when we watch these things come up in the big losers list, we look at these supports, we look at these buyers in the book viewer, and in a short term, you could see you can make a nice little profit within a short period of time.
Okay, now we can't do this without going over Nvidia, which really has been the story of the week. That's all we've heard about is Nvidia, AI, and what's going to happen at Jackson Hole. So this really is the story of the week.
This is a great story. So I was really looking forward to this. Earnings announcements came out yesterday. They were actually very good, and I think everyone even knew about it, even what happened in May when earnings came out before. I think we even talked about it. Now the question is, how high is it going to go? Because Nvidia was in the $100 price range. It's literally up about 300-400% in over a year. Now the question is, do I take my profit? Well, listen. I'm not an analyst. I don't pretend to be, but the book viewer does not lie, okay? So the stock in after hours, we waited, we watched it, and the stock had a big spike. It went to a price of about $5.15. And so you're sitting there, you're looking at, okay, well, that $5.15 is pretty high. It's going to continue to go higher. But then all of a sudden, you'll notice there was a 77,000 share seller showed up right around that price. Now, there are sellers at all different prices. Once again, 100 shares, 500 shares, 1,000. 77,000 is a lot for a $500 stock, Jill. So you could see it after hours. It hit it once, twice, 3 times. And now what happens, you start coming in the morning and you're wondering, okay, what do I do in this morning? Is it going to still continue? Well, if you notice in the after hours, it started trending down. Then when you got in early in the morning, right around, 7 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, yeah, around 7 o'clock, it started going lower, lower, lower. Another thing your listeners have to understand is that with the Nasdaq BookViewer, you could view all the orders in the pre-market. Some brokerage firms do offer it, some of them don't, but at least you'll have a sense of direction where it's going. So trends kept going down, 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 and then obviously when the market opened up, you could see it, boom, the stock just dropped from that price of 502 all the way down to a price of 193. And then right there on the bid, this is where it gets very interesting. There are buyers at all different prices, and in this specific stock, there were big buyers at every $5 lower. So, like it or not, stock's going $5 lower. So if that buyer gets done, and the only way to know that is to see that order on the book viewer, see that order start getting executed on time in sales. Once that buyer got executed, from what was that price at 490, 490, boom, then it went to 485. Tested the next biggest buyer. Guess what? Buyer got executed. Went down to the next biggest buyer, which was what was the price is at 480. Sorry. Finally found its sweet spot. People are like, you know what? I'm a big buyer here. Never wanted to go past that, and that's how the stock started going back up. So the beauty about using the Nasdaq BookViewer is that by seeing those orders, having a game plan, if you're ever worried about taking losses, well, the only way you're going to know where the next best support level would be is where the next big buyer are.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually want to go back to the last slide that we actually have up right now. I mean, you could see where it's consolidating in that trading range, and then it just bounces off at that 480 level, and it just hasn't stopped from there. So I think it's a great picture of that.
And what's even another picture I added onto that, if you look at the one underneath it, I added a long-term chart. So now remember, resistance, when you break resistance becomes support levels because it's program trading. There were orders trading back in the past back then. So what happened here is once we were above that resistance, now that becomes a support. So that's program trading kicked in. So that big order that you saw there on the Nasdaq BookViewer was probably orders out in the past that were out there. So when you're looking at where to get in, you're always looking at the past. Well, remember, what's only indicative of the future is whatever happens in the past is not always indicative of the future. And that's what the BookViewer did. And here it kind of worked in your favor because you had over close to about, 900 orders that made up that trade.
Right.
So, that's the whole game plan about using the BookViewer towards your everyday trading.
All right, Fausto, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.